Welcome back, everyone, to episode number 52 of the Beginner to Master Speedrun. I'm coming into today, rated 1860 on a win streak of 159 games. So let's try and keep it going, and I'll hop into the first game. Okay, first opponent playing Troya 23. And yeah, a few episodes ago, I did switch to the Sicilian Defense, which I think I'll stay with for at least several more episodes. And again, we see this early bishop c4, so yeah, following the rule of when the opponent develops a bishop to c4, it's nice to form this pawn chain. White plays a4, and yeah, I guess I do have a small choice here. Like, I could play d5 right away. I could play a6 to take away the b5 square. There's also knight f6, which I think is very fine. I'm going to play knight to f6, because this move does try to induce pawn e5, after which I would play knight g4. But white plays d3, so a decently solid move. And yeah, I'm going to start with a6 here. And really, I just want to play d5, next move, force the bishop back, and not allow bishop to b5. White plays bishop to g5, so okay, creating the pin, maybe ideas of playing pawn e5. I think it's worth just throwing in this move, pawn h6, because I really don't mind if white takes, I take back and activate the queen. And with bishop h4, now I have a choice. I could play bishop to e7, simply breaking the pin. g5 comes to mind. g5, bishop g3. I don't know if I want to commit to expanding so much on the king side. So yeah, I think bishop e7 is decently solid. And I'm really not scared of e5. Like e5, there'd be knight g4. And now I can finally get in this d5 move. And this is somewhat of a fork. I think white had to take there. And now the bishop's going to have to retreat. And I think overall this is a nice opening success. I haven't won any material, but the pieces are nicely placed. I do have a bit more space in the center and on the queen side. And yeah, now I'll go ahead and pin the knight, developing the final minor piece. Maybe setting up some idea of knight to d4. But white's playing pretty quickly. Reinforces the knight with other knights. And yeah, knight d4 doesn't really have a great punch because the knight is well defended. So it's now a question how to proceed. And bishop d6 comes to mind, simply offering the trade. Yeah, I'm going to play bishop to d6. As with the pawn on h3, the bishop's a bit less supported, and I am threatening to take to damage white's structure. And if white takes, then I can activate the queen, try and build up the center, connect the rooks. And I think in general, like when you have a bishop on e7 against a more actively developed bishop, then it can be worth just initiating the trade. Very often you want to trade your passive pieces for the opponent's more active pieces. And now the pieces that I'm left with are nicely developed, nice and active. But it still takes work. Like white's position is a little bit passive, but at the same time it's solid. And I'm still looking at this idea, but I don't really think there's a threat with this move. So rook e8 comes to mind, just a simple way to challenge white's rook on the e-file. And I think this is another example of like my rook was doing nothing on f8. Might as well try and trade off white's active rook. And the goal is to take over the file. White plays knight f1. And after this move, I mean, yeah, a few things come to mind. Knight d4 came to mind initially. But I also now have rook takes e1, and if queen takes e1, then I can take on f3, double white's pawns, and then play knight d4. And that looks really, really nice. Yeah, I'm going to go for this. Of course, the knight can't take because it's pinned. So I think white just succumbed to the pressure. Like I was building up and yeah, now I'm getting, I think, a more concrete advantage. Like even though it's still equal material, I'm probably going to be winning something here. Like the only way to defend both pawns is queen d1. And then I can play queen f4. Yeah, queen f4 looks really nice. And there's actually a really cute tactic that could potentially come up. I'm attacking this pawn again. And if white plays knight d2, which looks like it holds things together, there would have been queen takes d2 followed by the fork with knight f3, which I can show after the game. King g2 is probably a better way to try and resist. And yeah, I'm not quite winning a pawn immediately. So, I mean, there's definitely some moves to consider here. Rook e8 is very natural. I mean, this is one piece that has not involved itself in the game. If I play rook e8, I would be having ideas of rook e2. There's also knight f5 to threaten knight h4. So, I mean, it's basically a choice between like pizza and cake. Like both are tasty. It's just, what do I want to consume? I mean, rook e8 isn't like super forcing. Guess rook e8, there's knight e3. With knight f5, I do discourage knight e3. Yeah, I'm going to play knight f5. This does look a little bit more problematic for white. It's also aesthetic. Like it's a pretty busy f-file here. But the threat of knight h4 is pretty much impossible for white to stop. And knight h4 would force the king away from defending f3. So I think it's very likely I'll end up winning the pawn. Also probably have some mating attack. I do want to point out the line, like if white plays knight d2 to over-defend f3, I can play knight h4, and then if king g1, I can take the knight on d2. So this tactic was possible in the other line, but I guess we're getting it in this line. Yeah, oh no, my queen. Always have to double check before playing such a move. But now I'm setting up the fork. Now, the game's not over yet, actually. I'm just realizing that, yeah, once I win the queen back, there is rook d1. The nice thing is I've won a pawn. I guess, can I win another pawn? Maybe not. I mean, I kind of want to play this move, but after takes and then takes, I would be up 2 pawns, but white has a file and the more active bishop. So, yeah, it actually still takes work to win. I think I'm better off just playing rook e8 here and then controlling the only open file. And now I have to try and convert my extra pawn in the endgame. But I like the idea of just infiltrating right away. There's some potential for rook a1, and the king's ready to come in to reinforce the center. White plays b4. Yeah, I think I can just take the pawn. I mean, it does look like I'm weakening my pawns, but a free pawn is a free pawn. And now I'm up 2 pawns. And white's pieces are a bit stuck. Like as long as the d5 pawn is defended, the bishop is pretty much shut out. So bishop b3. Yeah, I'm just going to walk the king in. King would like to participate. Maybe even someday like get to c3. Like if the king can somehow teleport to c3, I would win or trap the rook. But yeah, far away from actually doing that. Okay, let's keep walking the king in. If king f2, I'll probably keep control over the e-file. White is offering the trade of rooks. I could take, but if white wants to trade rooks, I think I'd rather let white take on e6 and then take back with the pawn and have the two center pawns. White plays f4. I'm thinking knight h5 here. Yeah, still leaving the tension between the rooks. Again, I'm just trying to provoke white to take, and then, yeah, it'd be nice having the pawn chain against the bishop. And okay, my knight should probably just go back now. And now the plan is to maneuver to c5. If I can get the knight to c5, then, I mean, the simplest thing to do would be to trade knight for bishop, or maybe somehow win some queenside pawns. And there's really not much white can do here. Like, the king is boxed out, the bishop can't really improve itself. I think this all stemmed from the opening too. Like, the bishop is just not happy staring at these pawns. Okay, h4. I think I'll throw in the move h5. Just ensuring that the king can't come in. Like, sometimes in these endgames, you just want to limit the opponent's counterplay as much as possible. Make sure that there's no activity. Now the knight can come to c5. And yeah, just making sure, like, after takes, and black is up 2 pawns. So we're getting way more simplified king pawn ending. I'll play e5 and eventually try and get in with the king. I guess I do have to be a little bit careful here with, like, which pawn to take. I mean, I think the simplest approach is probably to play this move. And then, although is that simple? Because if white waits, yeah, my king's going to come into f5. Like, sometimes there can be concerns where if you close down the position completely, then there's no way to make progress. But in this case, once the king can come to f5, white should eventually be in zugzwang. And if white plays f5, then my king can come to f6. So yeah, everything should still be under control. There's also, like, the potential breaks. Like, if I play a5 and then b5, and eventually I can make a pass pawn on the queen side. Yeah, actually, if I play king f6, there's a5. It's winning, but I'm just going to play b6 here. Because white's a bit stuck. If the king moves forward, I start pushing my pawn and I queen it. And if the king moves back, then I think eventually we're going to see an example of zugzwang. Although here, okay, I'll just push the pawn. And yeah, pawn becomes a queen. And now it's cleanup time. I think the most efficient way to win is just to go for mate. Get the king to the edge. Okay. Got the nice effects, nice animations. So hopefully an instructive game. I mean, this started as a nice opening for black. It seems like a recurring theme over the last few speedrun episodes. When I play the Sicilian, a lot of my opponents are playing this early bishop c4, treating it as an Italian, but it's a benefit of playing the Sicilian is you don't commit your pawn to e5, and when the bishop comes to c4, you just play e6, and yeah, the bishop is very often more of a liability than a strength for white in these structures. So going forward, yeah, interestingly, the engine does say that g5 is a fine move. It's actually one of the top moves. But okay, I played bishop to e7, and yeah, this worked out quite nicely. And got the space advantage, and yeah, I think these trades were nice. And knight f1 was kind of just crumbling for white. But my opponent did put up resistance. And yeah, maybe I didn't convert in the best way possible. Like I had a really nice attack in this position. I think maybe I was too excited to simplify with queen takes g2. And actually the engine's pointing out, yeah, I really should have considered the move queen g5 here. This would have been way more efficient to win the game. I think when I played queen takes g2, I thought I was just winning the knight, not realizing my knight gets trapped in a resulting variation. But with queen g5, this is just almost mating. The king moves here. Here it's checkmate. King moves here. Then, yeah, going into this could have saved me a lot of time and energy. But at least we got a nice instructive endgame. We just go forward here. I was too excited to say, oh no, my queen. And yeah, it took a lot of effort to win. But this king pawn ending, yeah, once minor pieces came off the board, it's one of these situations where, yeah, if white waits with king e3, I would have played this, and then if this, I would have played a5 here. And this is an example of zugzwang, where white's only legal moves are basically self-destructing. The king would have had to retreat, and then I would win the pawn, and then the king has to retreat again, and I just come in, can win this pawn, and eventually queen one of my pawns. So, okay, still nice clean game to start the episode. Let's keep it going. Up to 1868, playing Panther Chess 8, and I'll play e4. And we have a king's pawn. I'll play knight to f3. And we have a Petrov. We could have the start of a Stafford Gambit. Yeah, we do have a Stafford Gambit. Okay. Let's go into the Stafford. I haven't had this in a while, at least in the speedrun. Yeah, at some point I had, I think, a game or two in the Stafford in this series. So I'm just going to play the most solid variation, pawn to d3. And then bishop to e2. This is the safest way to play against the Stafford. Now, I've had this position a ton with the black side, and as white, you still do need to be careful. The move I like to play as black is pawn h5. Knight g4 is also playable there with the idea bishop takes g4 and queen h4. But here, yeah, with h5, black is trying to get in knight g4. So I think the simplest way to play is just pawn h3. Just making sure the knight can't come in. And yeah, the move I like to play as black from this position is queen d4, which tries to induce white to castle, and then there's ideas of queen d6 and knight g4. So if black plays this move, then I'll have to share some interesting preparation. There's other moves black can try, like queen d6 or bishop e6. But the main goal when you're playing against a Stafford is really just to be super solid, fend off black's threats and attacks, and then be up a pawn in the middle game. So with bishop e6, yeah, this is not the most threatening move. And one of the setups for white is to eventually play c3 and d4. And I think I'll go for c3 right away. d4 can come with tempo. Really just trying to expand in the center. Yeah, with d4. And actually, with the queen on e7, there's going to be potential for bishop to g5. But I'm going to start with pawn d4 first. And yeah, black does castle, so avoids moving the bishop and pins the pawn. But now bishop g5. Making sure the pawns are not takeable in the center. I think very likely knight d2 will come, not only to help reinforce e4, but also to break the pin on the d file. I'm also probably threatening pawn e5 here. So I think it's already a bit difficult for black to deal with. This pawn can't move backwards. Black goes for a sacrifice. Honestly, this is maybe one of the best tries for black, because after takes, there's queen b4, and black will maybe get some initiative. But white should be happy just to win material. And now, yeah, it's a question how to get out of check. There's a lot of candidate moves, like bishop d2, knight c3, knight d2, queen d2, and king f1 are all options to consider. I think the move I like the best is queen d2, because white's already up a piece, and if we can trade queens, then that would probably just solve any issues of my king still being in the center. So, yeah, queen d2. I mean, maybe black will win a pawn on d4, but then we trade. And if takes, yeah, I can develop the knight, and then there's still this pressure too. So it's looking pretty good. If black avoids the queen trade, then I might have e5 or just bishop takes f6. Okay, black takes on d4. So I'm pausing here because, I mean, of course, this is the simplest. Queen takes d4, rook takes d4, bishop takes f6. We can simplify and I'd be up a piece at the very end. I guess a piece for a pawn. But I'm also considering... Oh, I guess e5, there's just queen takes e5. Yeah. The bishop takes f6, there's queen takes f6. So yeah, let's just go for the simple line. Takes... I was hoping to get e5 to attack the pinned knight, but I think we'll just go for simplification here. Knight c3, developing and defending. And I'm going to try and keep it very, very simple. Try and limit black's counterplay. And it's going to be another kind of endgame situation where I'll have to convert the extra material. Now here, I mean, if I want to, I could consider taking a pawn on h5. And taking h5 might allow this move. You know what? There's a really funny line. There's a really funny line here I might not be able to resist. Let me just calculate this. So bishop takes h5. Black can play rook d2. And then I have the move knight d5, obstructing the rooks from, or the d8 rook from defending the d2 rook. And my thought is that after knight d5, if black takes on b2, there's a crazy idea to queenside castle, attacking the rook and threatening knight e7 with checkmate in 2. And there's other probably just simpler ways to win, but I'm gonna take on h5 because that's too beautiful to pass up. Like rook d2 is a very natural attempt for black to try and activate. It's completely not necessary, like especially to play knight d5. Like it's probably simpler to castle or play rook b1, but knight d5. If bishop takes d5, I take the rook. Rook takes d5, I take, so I win material in those lines. And yeah, knight d5 attacks f6. So I'm gonna go for it. This is an example of what you should probably not do when you're just up a piece with a winning advantage. But sometimes the point of chess is to create some beauty and explore the sometimes unexplored territory. And it's a very rare idea that like a rook is on b2 and you castle making 2 threats. It's what I like to call the castle fork. I've had this this sort of tactic in other situations in my games. I'm sure if you search for castle fork on my channel, you'll find some nice examples. Now, there's no guarantee black will take the pawn, but I think this is the most natural move. Opponent is probably realizing that, yeah, the rook was attacked. And Oh, I'm not actually threatening mate in 2, but I am threatening mate in 3. I forgot the bishop could move back. So, yeah, queenside castling. Just making sure. Now, I should point out, too, because I've posted some videos where I've done this, and people, they start commenting that this shouldn't be legal because the rook controls b1. But it's completely fine to castle as long as the king is not moving through check. So the king doesn't move through b1. I think there was a world championship match where like one of the players had to ask the arbiter if castling was legal when b1 is controlled. I forget what match it was, probably like in the earlier 1900s. But yeah, the king attacks a rook. I threaten knight e7 to attack the king and unleash my rook on the d file. And I think black was just defenseless there, and now it's force mate. Okay. Well, that was a fun one. I think this is one of the most beautiful moves I've played so far in the speedrun. And it's even nicer to do it against a Stafford Gambit. So hopefully this serves as a nice lesson of how to play against a Stafford. Yeah, my opponent did start the game with usually what I like to play as black when I play this opening. Now the move I usually go for here is queen to d4, which I think is the most venomous because a lot of players will castle here. And then there's the try knight g4 or queen d6. I usually like to try queen d6 to then set up knight g4. And this position is actually really tricky for white to play. I think the only good move for white is to play c3. If white doesn't find this move, then I think black gets a lot of attacking possibilities in other lines. So if my opponent were to go for queen d4, oops, sorry about that, after queen d4, I would not have castled. I would have played the move rook to f1. And I do have to give a shout out to the website chessmood.com because they have like a whole training series of like a whole opening repertoire for white and for black. And they have a course dedicated on how to refute the Stafford Gambit. And this is one of the lines that they recommend in their Stafford Gambit refutation course. And it's one of the most annoying lines I've faced from the black side. Basically, white is avoiding castling into black's attack. The rook very simply defends f2, and white's going to gain time against the queen with c3 and d4 coming. And yeah, it's kind of hard for black to generate much attack in this position, even though white's king is in the center. After c3, d4, eventually white will develop and then look to castle queenside eventually. So yeah, we didn't go into that, and yeah, I think what happened in the game was very nice, and especially this finish with knight d5 and castling, not the type of move that you see every day, but we'll take it. So up to 1876. Let's do one more game. Playing white, and I'll play another e4. And this time we have an Alekhine. So I don't think I've faced the Alekhine thus far in the speedrun, as far as I remember. Now, usually against Alekhine, you just want to take over the center, gain time, attacking the knight. More people play pawn to d6. I think with pawn e6, I don't mind playing pawn c4, gaining more space. And I'll develop my king side. Black plays bishop to b4. So yeah, this is a question what to block with. Could play bishop d2 or knight c3 are the two moves that come to mind. I think I'll play bishop d2, offering the bishop trade. After takes, I'll take with knight. And really I'm just looking for a nice harmonious setup with the pieces controlling a bit more space. And it's a little bit clunky for black on the king side. Black goes for pawn f5. That's interesting. So trying to shut out my bishop from targeting h7. This does give me the option of en passant which honestly does look attractive. Like if I take, let's say queen takes, and then the knight can come to e4, I think that's worth going for. Because I'll get tempo, and as nice as it is, like keeping a pawn on e5, I think it's even nicer to just seize initiative on the king side. And now the bishop's not obstructed. And I might even consider castling queenside eventually. Because there's going to be a lot of attacking potential on the king side, especially with knight g5 in the air, black not having an f-pawn. Queen f4, interesting. So I'm looking for ways to attack. I mean, looking at knight g5 and then h6. I'm not sure if I have enough there. It's a very interesting square for the queen on f4. Because it's not easy to get rid of. And it also can prevent me from castling queenside. And g3 would hang a knight. And black is also having ideas of d5. So I might have to play a bit safe here. Like I'm looking for a follow-up after a knight g5, h6. I could go crazy with h4, but I probably don't want to go for that. I guess there is... Okay, I'm going to calculate knight g5, h6, and then g3. How about? But then the queen just moves back. I was thinking I'd have knight h7, but f3 hangs. Yeah, I think queen f4 was a very fine move. Knight c6 is in the air. I might just play queen d2. Like, I don't see too many attractive options. I guess another idea is to play this move, bishop c2, to set up queen d3 if I want to keep some attacking chances. I'm just not sure about like pawn d5 and black is grabbing initiative. I mean, even after queen f4, pawn d5 might be coming. I'm also thinking knight g3, just so that I can meet pawn d5 with pawn c5. Like, that might be the way to go. And then at least I stay flexible. Because I think this is black's threat. Yeah, I'm going to go for knight g3. I think this is the most flexible move. It does unleash the bishop. It kind of gives up on my ideas of playing knight g5. And there's an idea here that if black plays knight c6, which pressures a pawn, there'd be potential tactics with bishop takes h7. But here, yeah, I think I'll just play c5. And now going forward, it's going to be a fight for e5 square. Okay, black plays knight c4. Yeah, black is just putting their things in my territory. I think with this move, I have a few options. I can play queen c2, attacking h7 and the knight. And that actually looks quite nice. I'm just scanning the position, making sure everything is defended. Knight's defended, pawn's defended. And it is nice harmony for white. Like, I'm controlling all the key squares and potential targets. And now I think I'll just win a pawn. And even though my king's in the center, I don't think it's that easy for black to attack. Yeah, the knights do a very good job at holding things together. And next move, I think I just want to castle, enjoy the extra pawn. Now, there is a possibility of black playing b6 to prepare this, which doesn't happen. I was going to say I would have castled bishop a6 and then take on e6 with check. So here, yeah, I'll just castle. Bishop d7. And now going forward, I think it's just a matter of improving. Like pawn b4, rook e1. Pawn b4 does look nice to start with. just creating the possibility of pawn to b5. So black discourages it. I'll start with rook e1 here. And the e6 pawn is definitely a clear target. I do have to keep in mind the pins, because my pawn is pinned to the queen. Knight is pinned to f2. But black can't really exploit anything here. And now there's a nice move, rook e4. So attacking the queen, preparing the double up. I think eventually I do want to play pawn to d5. But now there's this pin, so yeah, let's double up first. And pawn d5 should be coming soon. And there's also the possibility of just leaving my pawn here and trying to build up more pressure against e6. And maybe even a4 and b5. But looks like black is a bit stuck. Not easy to find active moves. I'm just thinking, like, if black tries this move, can I get away with this? I was calculating takes and then takes and then takes and then queen f7 and then knight g5. But I don't want to lose my pawn on f7. So, yeah, maybe it's still a bit tricky. The knight's coming to d5. And bishop's coming to b5. Bishop might even be coming to c6. Oh, but the bishop's tied down to e6. Okay, I also have to move faster. What to do? I think I'm just going to play queen b3. Looks like kind of a random move, but I didn't want bishop b5 to come with tempo in some cases. I also want to prepare a4 and b5. Which, yeah, let's go for... Or I could play a3 too. Second guessing myself here. Okay, change of plans. I'm going to play a3. Just reinforcing b4. Yeah, I'm realizing I really want to play knight e5, but f2 is a liability, so I'm going to defend f2 first. And then go for knight e5. Black's done a good job at trying to hold their ground. This was a very good maneuver, get the knight to a more active place. But I think black is still suffering here with a bad bishop, the isolated pawn that can't really move. And if I can play knight e5, then like hopefully I can build up more pressure, maybe eventually like h4, h5, trying to eventually crack the king side. There's also ideas of knight g5 to g4 to h6. So black plays bishop c8. Yeah, I really just have to up the pace. Just over 2 minutes. There's ideas of knight c4 to d6. I think I'll probably start with h4. Just give myself another resource to attack. Maybe eventually I can move the queen into h6. And black is still restricted. Okay, let's start with h4. I'm thinking the queen is a bit more useful on d2. Knight comes to f4. Yeah, it's getting spicy. Queen d2. H4 is attacked. Huh. Let's play safe? No, knight takes g2. Wow. You have to be really careful here. Play h5 maybe. Somewhat of a pawn sacrifice. I'm not thrilled with this move. H5 was probably a really bad move. I'm allowing takes. And the G file opens. Knight's on F4. I might end up sacrificing. Rook takes F4 and knight takes H5. Okay, black goes for this. I mean, it still looks good visually. I mean, I did just sack a pawn. Material's now equal. I have rook F3. You start with this. Just targeting this pawn. If queen G5, I have rook G3. There's maybe H4. It's just a tricky position and not much time. I really have to stay focused on the pawn's time. That's a good move. Okay, rook F3. So if queen G7, I'll take and then defend the G2 pawn. Just have to be really conscious of like rook takes G2 tactics. Queen takes F3, but they don't work. I'll take. So if queen takes, okay, king takes, so start with rook F4, and then I'll try and get the queen in as quickly as possible. And black's basically playing down a bishop. So it's just a matter of trying to attack now. I mean, we're both trying to attack on the same side. I'm probably threatening rook F7. And then maybe even I can trap the bishop in some cases. And the knight supports F7. The queen is almost trapped. Actually, the queen is basically trapped because if queen here, there's rook F8. So it looks like I can breathe a sigh of relief. Ooh. My opponent did really well to resist. I mean, the position looks really good for white in the middle game. But now, now it's cleanup time. Yeah, black might play out until checkmate, given my time situation. But I'm going to win the bishop. Like, there's no escape. Rook C7's coming. I maybe don't even have to take the bishop. Like, I probably just walk the king up and checkmate. Like, going after the bishop would just not be the best use of time. I do want to keep the king cut off. Where's my mating net? Okay, we'll just take here first. So king G6. I'm looking for the most efficient mate. I think it's knight G4. But the bishop wants to... Okay, so let's play this move. Bishop D3, I'll take it. And I'm threatening back rank mates. Okay. Oh, difficult fight. Yeah, it really wasn't easy. Like, goes to show that even in positions where it seems like everything is going well, can still take a lot of work to win a chess game. But got the win up to 1884. Let's go back and analyze. So yeah, generally in the Alekhine, I like to play a setup with just getting the big pawn center and developing and castling. And that's basically what I got in this game. Black played this interesting move F5. And then, yeah, this moment Queen F4, like it seemed like a move I should punish, but really wasn't easy to find like the best path for white. Originally I was looking at knight G5, but after H6, I don't think white has a good follow-up. And the engine says this is playable. Engine says after h4, it's equal, but I didn't want to take the risk there. I tried to play a solid move, knight g3, which is fine. And then, yeah, then I got a very nice position because I got queen c2, I won the pawn, and then everything seemed to be going fine for white. Kept building up. And then at some point, I maybe just didn't quite know what to do, and I burned a lot of time. Like around here, the knight found a nice post on d5. And okay, c6 was a big positional mistake from black because it shut out the bishop pretty much for the rest of the game. If black played bishop c6, this would not have been easy for white because my pieces are targets on the long diagonal. Would have still had to be very careful. And then going forward, yeah, I was not happy after I played h5 because this gave black the option of taking with a pawn. And at first I thought, okay, this damages black's structure, but at the same time it opens the g file for black and also gives black the idea of playing h4. So I think black probably should have gone for this rather than taking with a knight first. Because once we got this, then, yeah, then things were decently under control. I was able to lift my rooks to the f-file. And then, yeah, with rook f7, it was pretty much lights out for black. Despite the fact that I was below a minute, I still, yeah, had plenty of time to convert this position. So, okay, some fun games today. Fun episode. Hope you guys enjoyed the chess. As always, if you like the content, do subscribe. It does help the channel. And stay tuned for more. I'll see you guys soon.